want to put this bike to the test, and I want to do so by trying to climb that hill right across from us. I don't know if we'll make it, but there's only one way to find out. Now that was fun. Have you thought about stepping into the market of getting a dual drive e-bike, but are wondering, is it really for me? Well, today, for the very first time, I'm reviewing a dual drive, dual motor e-bike. And it's actually an affordable option compared to others that are out there. In this video, I'm going to tell you all the specifications and let you know what I really think about it. To learn more, continue watching. So if you are still watching, I'm guessing you want to learn more about this bike. Well, I'm here to tell you all about it. This is the Lankeleisi MG740 Plus, my very first dual drive, dual motor e-bike that I've ever reviewed on my channel. For starters, I do want to thank the people over at Lankeleisi for reaching out to me and giving me the opportunity to not only review this bike, but to share it with all of you, because some of you may be interested in a bike like this. Maybe not. By the end of this video, hopefully you'll have the answer to that question. For starters, I want to talk about the appearance. As you could tell, it's a blue bike. I chose this color specifically when I saw the color options available. I'm like, blue has to be the one that I choose, and I'm glad I did. It's a great color blue. The wheels are more of a glossy blue, where the frame is more of a matte finish. The blue does kind of fade into the black here. Really great looking colors on this. They go hand in hand with each other. They really complement each other, and not a whole lot of blue bikes on the market that I've seen. I've reviewed white, teal, orange, green, black, and gray, but never a color like this. So this really has a striking appearance. Also has more of an aggressive look to it, at least in my opinion. It has these fenders that do kind of resemble a dirt bike or a motorbike. So appearance alone, I give it 2 thumbs up. There are a few things I do want to talk about with this bike after riding it for a few times. There's some things I really love about it, some things I think they can improve upon, which I will share with you later in the video. But the biggest main thing I want to talk to you about is the drive system. Not one, but 2 motors, front and rear, which is considered all-wheel drive, and it's 2 1,000 watt motors. That's 2,000 watts of power. And you can operate them either together, so you have all-wheel drive, or you can operate the rear motor or the front motor independently of each other, depending on what you want to do. On top of that, powering it is a Samsung battery. So you're going to have great battery life, tons of power, and a great looking bike. But there's a lot more to learn about this bike, so come on over, let's take a closer look. To pick up where we left off with the battery, this is a Samsung 48 volt 20 amp hour battery. The charging port is right there. There is a toggle switch to power on and off. That switch is required to turn the bike on. On the other side, you will find your key slot. That is for locking, unlocking the battery, so if you want to remove it to charge it, you can do so. Or you can simply charge it on the bike. And just underneath that is the USB charging port, so you can charge your phone while riding the bike. Just have to attach a cord right there to it. Up here in the handlebars, we do have pretty solid rubber grips. Not super comfortable, but you know, they're tough. They're not going to rip on you really easily. Stopping power is front and rear hydraulic disc brakes. We do have a control pad here, multiple buttons on it. Power it on, make sure your switch is on the battery, long press it. The screen boots up there. So we do have our battery indicator, miles per hour. The pedal assist mode, 1 through 5, 5 being the most powerful. 1 is eco, and then you go to normal, then sports mode. And then down here is your odometer. You can also toggle through for tripometer, amp hours, And right here says single, which is B, that's the back motor. To change the motors, you just long press the plus button. So long press it will change it to dual. That's front and rear at the same time. Long press again will be F for front wheel drive. Long press again will take you back to back wheel. So while you're riding or at a standstill, you just long press the plus button and you can cycle through the different motor options. It is a 7-speed Shimano gear system and your half twist throttle right here, which is nice and convenient, very similar to like a motorcycle. There is a headlight on this right there, dedicated button. When you press that, the screen does dim along with a headlight icon to show you that it is on. And you do have a walking pace right here. If you long press the minus button, it will do a slow speed to kind of walk with it, give you some assistance. And below that is your horn, electronic horn, nice and loud. We do have front fork suspension, which you can lock out and adjust the sensitivity on it. Really great 4 LED headlight, one of the better lights you could get on a bike. This does ride on 26 by 4 inch wide fat tires, big beefy tires, suitable for off-road terrain. It does have fenders, not the greatest, they are a bit flimsy, but there's fenders, they are better than nothing. No tail light or brake light, and basically that is everything except the seat. And the seat, as you can tell, is nice and plush, nice and wide. I will give that a 4 out of 5 seat rating. Pretty comfortable seat. Handlebars also are adjustable. You could raise or lower depending on your riding position. A couple other things to mention is the range. Now the range is kind of tricky since it's a dual drive, dual motor e-bike. So it's advertised to get between 43 to 93 miles per charge. And that's pedaling, not throttle alone. Throttle alone would be less than that. So if you're a lighter rider doing mostly flat terrain, not using dual drive at the same time, you could possibly get closer to that 93 range that they do advertise. If you're a larger rider and doing a lot of hills using dual drive, you're gonna get less range than that, closer to the 40, 43 mile range. Now, this bike does weigh just under 75 pounds, not super light, not super heavy, but it is a little bit heavier than other bikes, but it is obviously dual motor. It's gonna add some weight to it. But this does have a large payload capacity of 400 pounds. So if you are a larger rider, or even someone my size, you want to carry an extra 20, 25 pounds of gear to go camping, or some remote distances, or even carry a spare battery if you wanted to, you can certainly do that. It is going to hold a good amount of weight. Also has a top speed of 30 miles an hour. Pretty average for an e-bike. You know, given the motor size and the battery, that is to be expected. But again, when you go really fast or use the dual drive system, you're going to really shorten your range on how far you could go on a full charge. With that being said, we covered everything else. Now let's do some riding. I'm going to gear you up on my chest here on the action camera, and we'll have some fun on the Lankeleisi MG740 Plus. This does have good stopping power with those hydraulic disc brakes. No rear suspension, but the front fork suspension and the large tires feel sufficient for this bike. If this was a heavier bike, I would say definitely would need rear suspension. Now, while riding this bike for a few days, I've come to find out what's the best use for this. And when I say that, that's regarding the motor. So most times, most terrain, I'm using just the rear hub motor. That's sufficient for everyday riding, most terrain, small hills. I never use the front wheel drive because that just seems more prone to spinning out, sliding out, and causing an accident. The only time I really use the dual drive motor system is if I am climbing really steep hills or going through really soft material. Then I will switch to that, but I don't use it unless necessary, just to kind of conserve the power. 2 motors is twice the power you're using, so you're getting more power, but you're also using more power. So I use it sparingly, only when necessary. Oh, here's a really steep hill here. Now, you obviously can pedal this bike like a normal e-bike. If you want to ride this on the road, on rail trails, Now, you are able to do that. You don't have to use just throttle, but when you're in a place like this, off-roading, you want to use it more like a motorcycle or an off-road vehicle, and that is mostly using just throttle. The other thing I wanted to mention too is that the throttle is in proportion to the pedal assist mode. Some bikes do have full throttle, full power, regardless of which pedal assist you're in. This one is in conjunction with the pedal assist. So if you're in pedal assist 1, you'll get minimum power through the throttle. To get the maximum power, you want to be in pedal assist 5. And that's regardless if you're in single or dual motor use. You could also do some trail riding too. And we do have the headlight if it doesn't get too dark. And hopefully the camera angle is doing okay for you. A little bit muddy here, I'm gonna take it slow. They do have fenders for a little bit of protection, but they're not great. I will let you know where they can improve upon it, but it is better than no fenders at all. Now, as far as torque and power goes, I will say when you're in single motor drive, specifically the rear motor, it's not real punchy, not something that's gonna really take out from underneath you. It feels moderate, but controllable, which is a good thing. Especially when you're in pedal assist 5, you're gonna get the most power, but it's not gonna be instant. It is gonna be gradual with the power build up and power takeoff. Now, when you switch to dual drive mode, well, that's a little bit different. I'm gonna demonstrate for you when I find it clearing here, the takeoff from single motor to dual motor. I do want to demonstrate just takeoff from the rear motor in pedal assist 5, giving it the most power, throttle only. Nice, slow and gradual, and picks up from there. Now to replicate that again, I'm going to switch to dual motor and throttle only, pedal assist 5. You can see, big difference. Now the one thing I do find is climbing hills, you have to kind of lean forward, otherwise it wants to spin the tires, it loses traction. It's not a lack of power, just lack of grip. The front end is lighter, obviously, because you're sitting towards the rear of the bike. But I'm definitely able to climb some much steeper terrain, more softer or aggressive terrain than on just a single rear hub e-bike. Definitely gives you a lot more exploring possibilities. If you couldn't tell, I was having just a little bit of fun riding this thing. I actually did a lot more riding than I needed to make this video. It's just that much fun to ride. And before we lose any more daylight, I do want to share a few things with you. After riding this for a few days and having some experience on it, there are some things I really love, some things I'm not so crazy about, but I'm just going to go back and forth really quick. Number one is that the power is great. 2,000 watts of power, dual drive system. You have plenty of power to handle almost all terrain. I will say there is a larger hill in the back there. I did try climbing off video. I got about 3/4 of the way and I lost momentum, wheels started spinning. If this had more aggressive tires, I think this would be better for off-road use. These are more just average, general 26 by 4 inch fat tires you find on most e-bikes. If you put more aggressive tires on it, you're gonna get better traction. As we saw too, climbing steeper hills, especially in softer material, the front wheel does start spinning. You are forced to lean forward to kind of help combat that, the loss of traction. Now using the dual drive system with a lot of power, eats a lot of power. Going, full bore, throttle wide open, climbing steep hills, using both motors, it's a heck of a lot of fun. But you're gonna watch your battery go down fairly quickly compared to normal riding with just one motor. So just keep that in mind. For fenders, they're not very good. These fenders, they're probably the worst fenders I've had on a bike. I'll say they're better than nothing. I would give them like a 1 out of 5 rating. Not only are they flimsy, they need supports. Most fenders that I've had on other e-bikes have some side supports that go to the frame to help keep it stable and stiff, but they're not long enough. Even though I went through some soft, muddy material, like I was going slow, it was still kicking up on me. The fenders are just not long enough and they're not stable enough. So when you're bouncing around, the fenders are bouncing around as well. So the fenders definitely could be improved upon, whether through the company or if you were to put aftermarket fenders on it. I do recommend that. That combined with some more aggressive tires would be a really good addition to this bike. The other thing which is good and not so good is that when you're in dual motors, there's almost too much power. It's really torquey, really punchy, which is great for getting up to speed really quick. But if you're a new or inexperienced rider, it may actually get pulled out right from underneath you. It is really torquey, really punchy. Even in pedal assist 1, it just wants to instantly spin the tires. So you are kind of forced to be a little bit more controlling with the throttle. But if you're pedaling, it's not as punchy, not as torquey. It's mostly on the throttle. So keep that in mind, that if you're new to a dual drive system or never had a bike that was really torquey, this is going to have that when you're using the dual motor system. Lastly, if you've been thinking about getting a dual motor e-bike, I definitely highly recommend you consider the MG740 Plus by Lankeleisi. It's really fun to ride. It's easy to ride, plenty of power, with some limitations, but more importantly, it's a more affordable option compared to other dual motor bikes out there. Although this was my first dual motor e-bike, it's not my last one. You will see some more of them in the future. If you do want to compare any of my previous e-bike review videos, check the playlist down below. Otherwise, thanks for watching, safe riding, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.